If you'll raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. If you'll have a seat, make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury can hear.
Okay.
And if you'll state your name for the record,
Barbara Cheryl West.
state.
Thank you. Ms. West, can you please just introduce yourself to the jury?
I am Barbara West. My daughter is Alexandria Shea West Seibert.
You're showing on screen here, state exhibit number 78. My acting of saying that this was your daughter.
That was my daughter.
In fact, this picture was taken literally maybe a couple of months before she.
It was taken, that picture was actually taken, about a month and a half or 2 months by her best friend. Alex wasn't really a photography person, so she had her best friend who liked to take pictures, take her graduation photos. She did it covertly. She didn't want anybody to know she had them taken. So she and her friend went to UTSA, the grounds, and had them taken. Yes.
In fact, when did you receive these photos?
Shortly before Alexandra had died. She had just ordered some announcements for her graduation, and her friend Liz said, "Did Alex let you see all the photos that we took?" And I said, "Nope, she did not." And so she said, "Let me send them all to you." And so she sent me a lot of these photos. Alex used that one for her. I think we just received the card package for her graduation announcements, and she really was very shy, so she didn't know who to give them to. And I had them in an envelope and found all of those announcements.
Those announcements. Well, can you just, I know I said briefly, but I know that you had a lifetime with her of
I did.
24 years. Can you just describe Alex to the jury?
I can. So Alex is my baby. I have 2 older children, and Alex is my husband's only baby, only child. So she was his everything. And they were partners in crime. I'm going to tell you that right now. From the time she was little, she was able to spend on the summers, he builds homes. So she would walk the houses with him, and she had a little pink hard hat. And so he would show her how to mark the studs and bowed studs and different things. So she just thought her dad was everything. And as she got older, that really didn't change. He would take her to breakfast until she was in, I guess it was right before she got into middle school. Every day he would have breakfast with her. So it was a big deal for her to have her dad there. So she would do that with him. And I was fine with it because I had other things to do. So she liked that time with her dad. And then as she got a little bit older, they started going to the grocery store together. We used to go all together as a family, but they started avoiding me in the aisles. So I would then decided I would just buy my own groceries and not have them make fun of me in the grocery store. So it was her dad and Alex all the time. Thursday mornings, she was off on Thursday mornings. I think Josh had attested to that was her day off. And so she and her dad, she would never do anything else with any other friends. Thursday morning was, I have to go to the grocery store with my daddy. So it's been very challenging because even going to the grocery store now, my husband is having a very difficult time. He would walk the aisles and say, well, Alex would pick that up, or he would see something and he'd say, well, we need to get that for Alex because she loves certain things. So I would say, I always go, yep. And so we'll buy it. It'll sit around for a while at the house because nobody but Alex would eat some of that. I'm going to be honest with you, but those were things that Alex did. He bought her, or he finally caved, and she has a dog. It's not really a normal sized dog. It's a Great Dane. And Alex and her great, oh, yes.
For a second.
Yes. Oh, the picture.
I just want to show you this picture. You're speaking about a dog.
Yes.
And the reason I want to ask you is if you recognize state exhibit number 121.
Yes, I do. That is Alex and Blue. It's a selfie we found
Selfie that you found after her death.
after her death. Yes.
And this is the dog you're speaking of that her father bought her,
Yes.
your husband. and she adored that dog. Is that right?
It is a sad statement. Yes, she adored that dog. She slept with that dog anywhere that dog ended up. If it was, he had to be in his crate, she was in the crate with him. If it was in her bedroom, it was in her bedroom with him. So it was one of those interesting deals.
In fact, that night that she passed, she was coming home.
For the dog.
For the dog.
She would, I mean, I would always say, what about Blue needs me. Josh is fine. And I was like, that's fine. That's okay.
Your Honor, this time, Senator Defense would enter into evidence State Exhibit number 121.
No objections, Judge. All right, State Exhibit 121 is admitted without objection.
May I approach to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a big dog.
He's a large dog. He's a very large dog. He is, at the time Alex, was killed, he weighed, I'd say Blue was still what I'd call a puppy because Great Danes grow until they're, about 3. So Blue was about 2, a little shy of 3, and he weighed about 155 pounds. So he was a large puppy, I will tell you that. And so, yes, Alex always would come home. And the reason I know it's a selfie is if you look, there's a little air vent back there. So she was on the couch with the dog, and he has his girlfriend. We call him his girlfriend. He's a UT pillow that he slept with, and they both slept with. And so he would go to her room and take things off of her room, out of her room. So that was her dog. She was very responsible for the dog. She bought him special food. She had bark boxes coming to the house. She had him tagged. She had all of these things. She was very particular. I could not feed him anything strange. The child couldn't cook, but she would cook for that dog. She made him a special birthday cake out of special whatever it was. So it's very interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of.
I could talk about Alex all day. Ask anybody at the
And
grocery
I-
store or any store I ever go
I
to.
don't
so.
mean to cut you off, but
Mhm.
I could talk forever about my dogs.
Mhm.
But tell the jury, was Alex born on May 1st, 1998?
May 1st, 1998.
And was there anything special about her birth for you?
For me, I had ovarian cancer when I was younger. And so I had ovarian cancer when I was younger. And so I had my older 2 children, and then I ended up meeting Alex's dad later on, and we had Alex. And then I always tell everyone I was in my late 30s when I had Alex. When in fact, Alex was born on May 1st and I turned 40 on May 7th. I think it sounds better to say late 30s. I felt like it sounded better for everyone who was judging. So I thought I am in my late 30s when I had my daughter. So yes, that is what is special about that. Other than her being what I call a miracle, because we had a couple of miscarriages before we had her, and I didn't have everything because I had ovarian cancer. So she was what I'm going to call a very special gift from God.
Well, and that she was, and just, I believe that you stated to me previously when we spoke that some of her passions, and if you could just briefly go into just a passion of hers, just so that the jury can get a sense of what type of person.
Absolutely. So Alex never missed a day of school. She had perfect attendance from the time she was in kindergarten until she graduated high school. So never missed a day of school. And that wasn't because I said, I've got things to do. I don't have a babysitter. You have to go to school even if you're sick. She just had that intrinsic need to, she had a strong work ethic. She needed to be responsible. She just was that child. And as she got older, look, she took after me. She was not very athletic, but what she did gravitate to, she tried, but she gravitated to being an athletic trainer. So that was where she developed her passion for physical therapy. So as she made her way into athletic training, she just loved it. She thrived at doing that. And so because of that, she said, Mom, I didn't know anything about that when in junior high. So we tried to get her in volleyball, but Alex was 5'1", 5'2". So she was tiny. She never, she really wasn't going to be that kind of athlete in volleyball. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. So when she found and discovered athletic training, she developed a program for the middle school to present. So she took it to her teachers, and she said, what if? And so she was in the New Braunfels paper about developing this program for the junior highs or for the middle school, so they would know what opportunities they had. You may not be great in athletics, but you can still be a part of the athletic program. She was really proud of earning her Letterman's jacket, and, you know, all of these athletes, and Alex has got her Letterman's jacket. It just made her feel a part of, and that just, what she told and the message she sent is, you don't have to be your atypical athlete to be a part of something bigger. And I think that message resonated with her. She also, I work with children with special needs, so she would go with me and obtain her community service hours to earn her cords for the different programs she was in, and the National Honor Society and different things that she was in. And she loved it. She would go with her dad, and I would go out to different places, and she would volunteer to participate in these programs for the special needs, different events for the children. She did the buddy walk with me for Down syndrome children. She just loved it. And I think that was really what meant a lot to her. And then getting into physical therapy, she saw what we do with children with physical therapy, and then she loved the athletic side of it. So she was torn, what do I want to do? So as she went to college, she went to UTSA. She received a Bachelor's of Science in kinesiology. And the next step for that is, of course, to go into physical therapy, a program. It's a doctorate program for physical therapy.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I know, like you said,
No.
we could go on and on
All day long.
about your daughter.
Mhm.
But it seems to me that way you speak about her, she gave a lot.
I think that was her, I am of a different generation. And I think because Alex, my parents live right next door to us. And so Alex was always very caring. She just was that type of individual where she wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. So my mom would drive home from the grocery store, and Alex might be on her way to work, or she might be going to school, and she'd say, "Hey, Meemaw, you need help taking things out of the car?" And she'd run over there and unload it. Mom would say, "No, I'm fine." And she'd run over there, unload it, give her a kiss on the cheek, and away she'd go. She was very, just always wanted to give and be helpful. And even she worked at Cordillera. She worked, part of the time, she was going to school full time. She would work at Cordillera Ranch, and she ended up being, they call them bev cart girls. So she worked on the golf course, and she was always there, and was there in the evening also at the facility. And all of the people there, I didn't realize it, because Alex was not the type of person you'd walk in a room and it was like flashbang, I'm here. You just knew she was there, and you felt really good about her being there because she was just that quiet, confident person.
Let me ask you
Yeah.
a question about that. You know, with everything around her right now, and obviously this case, and obviously we're in the punishment phase of this trial, where the defendant in this case has been found criminally negligent homicide, guilty of that with a deadly weapon. How would she feel? You know, would she be embarrassed that people are?
She would be
talking about her?
embarrassed. I think I hear her a lot of times because I beat a drum pretty loud for her. And I hear her go, "Oh God, Mom, you're so," just, I was that mom who would fight for her, and she would go, "Mom, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay." But for her friends, she would fight for her friends a little bit like I fight for her. And I get that. Whereas she was always very caring. She was supposed to be her best friend. She was supposed to be the maid of honor for her best friend's wedding in the November, I think it was November 2nd, after she was killed. And I found this big plan. She had these plans of how she wanted to do the bachelorette party, and she had this all mapped out. And so I laminated it and framed it and gave it to her friend Liz, because I thought it was a special momentum. It was in her handwriting. I think she was so caring, she was so kind, and she signed everything with a heart. And I have the little heart with Alex on it. You can take, I didn't know this. I've never had a tattoo before in my life, but and I'm opposed to them. I'm going to tell you right now, but I did have the copy of her signature placed on my wrist, because that is how she felt. She had the heart, and it was Alex, and everybody just loved when they got something special from her. She has 3 nephews, and she would always pick the best gifts for them. And they would always go, they would just love Aunt Alex because Aunt Alex was about their size. I mean, she was little. And so she would do things, and any toy that they got, she would try it out first. And we've got videos of her trying out toys. But yeah, she was a very kind and giving young lady.
In fact, she was such a giver, I believe that, she chose to, beforehand, to donate her organs.
She did. She was an organ donor, and that was very hard for her dad. It was hard for me too, but I think I approached things a little differently. Her dad could not make a decision. He was the first to arrive at the hospital, and my son, I called my son. I was actually away, and when I got the call in the middle of the night, so I called my husband and my son, and they both met at the hospital together. And they kept calling me. It took me, I think Mom and I drove back very quickly. We were in Louisiana, and we drove back in 5 hours. That was pretty good timing for getting back from Louisiana. And I got back, and they kept calling me, when are you coming? When are you coming? And so I will say that Alex, I'm going to say that God allowed her to hold on, because her dad would have been devastated if he'd have been the one to make that decision. I'm going to be honest with you. And I think for us, I needed to wrap my head around the totality of what had happened to her and the damage done to her. And so what I wanted to do was give Alex a chance, because she was pretty much, you just never knew with Alex. She was pretty tough. And when it was finally time, I said, okay, and we donated her organs. So I think that for that reason, Alex is continuing to give, continuing to be there. And I'll be honest with you, Alex took that photo that y'all keep looking at that was in her text message, and she took that photo, and I feel like she's here representing herself, because she did take that photo herself and said, gosh, look what's going on here. I don't know what to do. And she drove that highway frequently, because she would go to Josh's, she would see her friends. And so she took that photo, and I'm going to say that that's been referred to by the defense as well as the prosecution. And I'm going to say that Alex has participated in this, and I'm going to give her points for that, because I know that she's here. Yeah, for sure.
That's state exhibit number 76.
Yeah. And so for me, I know that y'all heard about that with Josh, right? And Josh was devastated. He saying, for example, my husband will say, if I hadn't have bought her the dog, she wouldn't have wanted to come home. Josh says, if I'd have just gone down there and hugged her for 5 more minutes, then she would have been behind Mr. Castro when he left Hills and Dale. If that would have been the case, she wouldn't have been on the road. She would have been behind him. And none of that would have had, but we continue to look for answers. I'm going to be honest. The what ifs, I feel like I remember seeing her, tracking her and seeing her at Josh's and saying, okay, she's at Josh's. And I would watch her. And when I saw her car on 281, I thought, oh, good, she's on her way home. I'm okay. And as it turns out, I realize now she was on 281 where she was hit. So I think there's a lot of things we look at and we think, you never know. But I do think she was a gift. I think she had a lot to offer. I think she was just getting started. Her life was just getting started. Her dad, I say she had worked off and on for years at Cordillera while she went to college, and she had saved money, and she was planning for her dad to build her a tiny house on our property. And someone asked me, oh, she was going to build a tiny house. I said, well, it was really for her dad. And it was for her to live in the big house, and I was going to go to the nursing home, which was fine. I mean, that was just the way it was with us. So yeah.
Well, ma'am.
Yeah.
You had a lovely daughter.
I did.
You have a lovely family.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
No, I appreciate you
Thank you.
allowing me to speak, because I will tell you, you're not the only person I'm going to talk to about her. I talk about and I'll probably talk about her until I can't talk anymore, but I keep her always.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and pass the window.
Okay.
Defense may have some questions. for
Sure,
you, ma'am.
absolutely.
Defense?
Yes, Judge. Miss West, Miss Saberg seems like she was an incredible and wonderful young lady, and we are so deeply sorry for your loss. We have no questions, Judge. Last witness.
right, you may step down.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That state. Call your next witness.
State rest, John.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 10-minute break. You are not allowed to start deliberating. I'll let you know when it's time for you to deliberate. So is 10 minutes enough time if anyone needs to take a break? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.
Not asking for the sequestration. The reason for the request is because we believe that based upon the juror's prior experience, if we get done with this at 6 o'clock, they'll come back with a verdict at 6:15 because they do not want to be sequestered. It could influence their verdict in an improper way. Their belief that what happened yesterday would happen today. And we would have no problem with the court explaining to the jury if they're going to go back at 6 o'clock that they will not be sequestered at 6:15 or sequestered at all, and they'll be allowed to go home if it comes to the end of their deliberations and there hasn't been a verdict. We believe that this is important to ensure that there is not a quick verdict in order to avoid that sequestration, since we are not asking for the sequestration.
Right, and counsel, as I'm sure you're aware, the request that a jury be sequestered may be made by the defense or the state. So just the defense alone stating that they're not going to be asking for sequestration is not something that the state may be requesting.
Yes, Your Honor, I apologize. I have conferred with the state, and my understanding is that they are not asking for a sequestration either.
All right, we're going to have the jury come in and then they will be allowed to deliberate. All right.
Your
All
Honor,
right,
just, I'm
let's
sorry,
line the jury up, please.
I apologize. And just so it's clear for the record, so my request is.
I am not going to tell this jury that they will not be sequestered.
Yes, Your Honor.
The jury is going to be allowed to deliberate. And we will see where we are at a specific time.
Yes, Your Honor. I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and defense, do you have your witness ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, do you want them to go ahead and take the stand?
Yes, Judge.
There's a hump at the very bottom. I always try to forewarn people because sometimes it jerks the seat. Yes.
All right, for the jury.
And state, do you want to turn off the overhead?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Judge.
That's okay.
You asked me a question I didn't know. How to answer.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And state, can you rest?
Yeah.
All right, defense, call your witness.
Yes, Judge. We call Irma Rodriguez.
All right, could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record, please.
Rodriguez.
All right, defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez. What is your relationship to Alex?
I'm his mother.
And how old is Alex?
38.
Now, I want to take you back a little bit for the jury to really get to know who Alexander is and his upbringing. What was it like when Alex was a young child?
Alex entertained himself. He was not a nuisance. I thought he was a perfect child. So he was a good kid.
And when he was younger, were you and his father together?
No, not biological.
Can you explain that to the jury?
Um, His dad now is not his biological father.
What happened with his biological father?
When I was pregnant, I left him because he was not willing to settle down.
So during Alex's formative years, did he grow up with a father?
Yes,
And who is that?
Billy Rodriguez,
Is that who Alex calls dad?
yes,
But Billy is not his biological father.
no.
Now, after Alex was a child, what was it like when he was in high school?
He was just a normal kid. Um, you know, hanging out with his friends whenever he could and going to school, trying to get him to do his homework, keeping up on it with his grades and
Did he meet his now wife, Christy, when he was younger?
yes, I believe that they met when they were like in the 5th or 6th grade.
And did they have a child together?
Yes, yes,
What is the name of that child?
Caleb,
How old is Caleb now?
20.
Does Alex have any other children?
They have a daughter,
What is her name?
Aubrey,
And how old is she?
16.
So you have two grandchildren from Alex that are 16 years old and 19 years old. And what is Alex's relationship with his children?
He does everything with his kids. I remember when the kids were younger, especially when my grandson was born, because my first grandson, he meant the world to me. And it was really, we would have to ask Alex and Christy if we could have the grandchildren come over because they did everything together and they're still like that.
What about his daughter, Aubrey?
She's very smart, very beautiful and very bright. So, and she's so attached to her dad.
Is she in high school?
Yes,
And where does she currently live?
well, she lives in Shirts with her mom, but spends a lot of time with Alex in Universal City at his house.
And so Alex and his wife are separated, is that right?
I believe so.
They still co-parent with both of their children.
Yes.
Now, throughout this trial, we haven't heard from Alex, but can you kind of describe to the jury what kind of person he is, as in, is he quiet, and can you describe him that way?
He is very quiet. Alex is very reserved. He just doesn't think that it's, my opinion, that it's necessary that he has to share whatever happens or whatever he hears. He keeps everything to himself.
Has he always been reserved?
Yes, he has, except whenever there's a situation that he wants to talk about, or other than that, we have to ask him questions to find out.
And you've been here with him throughout this entire trial.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez, you understand that the Sabert West family has suffered a great loss when they lost their young daughter.
Yes, yes, and I'm sorry for your loss. I'm a mother, so that's all I can say. Nothing will bring her back. But I am sorry for your loss.
Your Honor, we pass the witness.
Any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes. Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes,
I'm Jason Garahan. I'm a prosecutor for this case, or one of the prosecutors with Daniel Escobar. I have a few questions for you. One, I believe you stated that his children are 16 and 20, is that right?
correct.
So they're one's still a minor, 16, but she's 16 years old,
Correct.
and she does a lot of stuff with her dad.
Yes,
You heard Barbara West get up there and talk about Alex. Alexandria
Yes,
about what she did with her dad
correct.
and how, like, she'd like to go shopping on Thursdays with him. I'm sure that probably your son does that with his daughter, certain things. Is that right?
Yes,
And you are aware that Alexandra is never gonna be able to do that with her father ever again.
I am.
And you do
I
realize,
am. I am.
you do realize that your son is still around.
Yes, I am.
Even if he goes to prison, he's still gonna be around.
That's correct.
And that someday he'll be able to get out of prison and go hug his daughter,
That's correct.
both his children. In fact, he had an opportunity to have kids. You're aware of that too.
I
He
didn't,
has kids, right?
yes, yes, yes.
You know, the young lady that was killed for this committing negligent homicide never had the opportunity to have children.
That's correct.
And did you talk to your son that night after it happened?
Not that night.
You talked to him the next day?
Yes.
Did you say he was at bars?
No,
Say he was drinking?
no,
Did you say that it was his fault that this accident happened?
no.
So he said he wasn't drinking. He said it wasn't his fault.
He didn't say it wasn't his fault.
Okay, whose fault was it then?
He came over and told us that he was in an accident
He didn't
and
answer?
that a young lady had died and he was crying. And that's one of the very few times that we see an expression like that from Alex,
Was he
because he's
crying?
very reserved.
Was he crying because he was scared that he was gonna go to jail possibly, or was he scared, sad that a woman died?
Because somebody died.
Well, you've seen the videos. You've been inside this courtroom the whole time this has been going
That's
on.
correct.
Did you see any emotion on any of these body cams of him at the scene?
No, I guess I didn't, but he didn't know that there was a young lady that had passed away, according to the witnesses.
He saw this vehicle.
I did.
He saw that vehicle.
I-
In fact, he took a picture of it at the scene.
Okay,
You saw that, right?
no. Have I seen the picture that he took?
Yeah.
No,
Okay, but you know he took a picture.
I think I saw it on the video.
You know from testimony that he realized that somebody was seriously injured. In fact, he told USAA that he believed that somebody died. Just 6 days later.
What's your question?
Well, my question is that you said he was very emotional when he came to talk to you the next day,
That's correct.
but he wasn't very emotional when he gave his statement to USAA.
I wasn't there.
You said he was quiet and reserved.
Yes,
He doesn't share much with others.
correct. That's just his nature.
So he's reserved and quiet. So you saw the body cams. Was that how your son usually acted? Or do you believe do you know if he was drinking that night?
I don't believe he was. He's not anyway, no, I don't. And his truck had just rolled over. And I mean, no one can tell if he was injured or not. I don't think anybody even asked him. I don't know.
Well, they asked him actually at least 2 times that I recall
Okay.
on body cam, where it came into evidence that he was
Okay.
asked if he'd like to see EMS or get EMS to check out, and he goes, no, I'm good. So you're stating that you don't believe that when he told the police officers that night that he drank 4 to 5 beers, you don't believe that he was telling the truth?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
That'll be overruled.
You can answer the question, ma'am.
I don't believe I heard that testimony.
Okay. Well, if I'm telling you that's what an officer stated on the stand, would you call that, what would you say? Would you believe that or not believe that?
I would say that I don't know. I wasn't in here and I didn't hear that.
Well, you did hear your son blame the Honda came into him, slid into him.
Yes.
Is that what he- is that-
Yes, I heard,
Did he tell you that?
no,
So he just told you, I got in an accident, somebody died, and he said that the next day.
the next morning he came over to the house.
Would that be the morning that the accident happened or the next day?
I think it was that morning, maybe later on. I really can't recall.
Yeah, do you have any other children other than
I do. We have a younger son.
the younger son? And then you have a granddaughter that's 16,
Correct.
and I'm sorry, was that a grandson or granddaughter that's also 20?
Grandson.
Grandson? If somebody on the highway ran into one of your children or grandchildren going 90, and they never hit the brakes, they don't take any evasive action, and slice through their car, and then blame them for everything that happened that night,
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation, argumentative.
I'll hear the question and then I'll hear your objection.
Yes, Judge.
and then blame that person that got cut down for everything that happened, and then actually lie about it and say, well, I didn't see them, but then later on says, well, the Honda slid into me.
Objection, Your Honor. Compound question.
I'll
Right,
withdraw
that'll
the
be
question,
sustained.
Your Honor, and rephrase.
Your Honor, we'd ask for an instruction, disregard that question.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're instructed to disregard that last question and the objection to compound question that will be sustained.
Your Honor, we move for mistrial.
Denied.
Same facts of this case happened to one of your grandkids. What would you want to see happen to the defendant?
Objection, Your Honor. Invading the providence of the jury. It's speculation as well, Judge.
With regards to speculation, that will be sustained. With regards to invading the province of the jury, that will be overruled.
Your Honor, may we have an instruction, disregard that question?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're instructed to disregard the last question. State, if you'll restate your question, please.
Your Honor, we move for mistrial.
Denied.
Your son ever lied to you?
Objection,
maybe.
Your Honor, and proper character evidence.
Overruled.
Let me look an answer.
Yes, you can answer.
What was the question again?
Your son ever lied to you?
I'm sure he has
Does your son drink?
actually very little. Both of them. Bless him.
So he stated he was drinking that night,
He didn't tell me that he was drinking.
so you don't believe that?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and
I don't-
answered.
Overruled. You can answer.
Ask the question again.
I mean, I just find it odd that your son was in a fatality
Objection, Your
accident.
Honor, argumentative.
All right,
Any
let
punishment?
me hear the question and then I'll hear your
And
objections,
counsel
counsel.
testifying, Judge, just the way he started his question about what he thinks is odd.
All right, that will be overruled. I'll hear the question and then defense, you can make your objection and the court will make a ruling.
Find it odd that your son did not share you any specifics or any type of details about a crash where a young lady died and that he was involved in.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Overruled,
And counsel is testifying, Judge.
overruled.
You can answer the question.
Like I said earlier, he's very reserved. He doesn't share a lot of information. That's just the way he is. He's always been that way.
And is that with everybody, including? you?
Yes.
So like the police officers, he wouldn't be sharing information or
Well, I mean, if you ask him a question, he's gonna answer it.
pass witness young?
Nothing
Defense,
further, Judge. May this witness be excused.
is the witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. Okay. Defense, call your next witness.
Defense calls Bianca Zapata.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand if you state your name for the record, please.
My name is Bianca Zapata.
Judge, before the witness testifies, can you approach?
Yes. Deputy Laura is going to bring the jurors in. And Officer Zapata, if you'll retake the stand, please. Yes. I don't know, there's something going on in court. Everybody has a cough now. You know, they've never changed. I don't think they've ever changed the filters at this courthouse. Well, Norma, I could be wrong. So I'm not going to put that out there. Maybe they have changed it and we just don't know. We're ready.
All right, for the jury.
Everyone, please be seated. Officer Zapata, you're still under oath. Defense, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Before we begin, we would just ask the court to take judicial notice that the defendant has filed a written sworn motion for community supervision stating that he has never been convicted of a felony.
State.
We believe that he has filed that.
All right. Then the record will note that that has been filed.
And we are just asking for judicial notice on that matter.
The record will note that the defendant has filed a document stating that.
A sworn document. Yes, sir. Thank you. Ms. Zapata, first of all, I guess, could you please just introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Bianca Zapata. I work for the Bexar County Community Supervision and Corrections Department, otherwise known as adult probation.
Right. And can you tell us what, I guess, what your position there with probation is?
So I'm the supervisor for the court liaison officers. So every court on the criminal side has a probation officer assigned to that court. So my role is I supervise all of the probation officers that are over in the felony courts.
Now, as far as probation, can you give the jury an overview of what felony probation in particular, what it entails?
So felony probation, probation in general has initially when the judge orders somebody or grants probation or a jury grants probation, a person that starts supervision initially will go through an intake process, an orientation, and we will go over conditions of probation. There are some conditions of probation that are standard. They apply to everybody that's on supervision. And then there's other conditions of probation that are ordered by the court. And so our role as probation officers is to ensure that the individuals that are placed on supervision complete those conditions of probation during their term of supervision.
And as far as in your experience, have people who have been convicted of manslaughter and or criminally negligent homicide been placed on probation?
Yes.
And are you currently, or is the probation department currently supervising such people?
Yes.
So I want to talk about some of the conditions that you talked about. in a felon, and we can kind of keep it to felony, and you have plenty of experience in felony probation.
Yes.
All right, so the conditions that we're talking about, does that include a person has to be monitored for up to 10 years?
So an individual that's placed on probation, if they are adjudicated or found guilty of that offense, when they're on a felony probation, they can have a term up to 10 years.
And the other conditions that are pretty standard across all probation is that they cannot consume drugs or alcohol.
Correct.
And how does probation department make sure that the person is not consuming drugs or alcohol?
So the probation officers, we do not conduct our own drug testing. So we do have a third-party vendor, an outside lab that an individual is instructed to go submit their drug test. And that's done at the discretion of the officer or as the court orders. That individual is then instructed to go to the lab. They do the UA collection and send that off for processing, and then we're notified of the results.
Is there also, as conditions of probation, can restitution be assessed to the people that have been harmed by the defendant's actions?
Yes, that is correct. Restitution can be assessed, and the probation department is responsible for collecting that restitution and then dispersing that.
And as far as some of the other conditions, I guess ultimately are the conditions of probation set by the court?
Yes,
And those conditions, can they range from a person having a curfew,
yes,
from a person having to wear a GPS monitor,
yes,
a person having to be frequently tested for drugs and alcohol?
yes,
Can it also, are there conditions of probation that a person has to go serve 180 days, up to 180 days in the county jail?
yes,
And that's as a condition of the probation, so they have to serve every day of that 180.
yes, that is correct.
As far as the, I guess some of the other conditions, are there conditions saying that a person can't go to a certain place or certain type of place?
Yes,
And are there conditions that say that a person can have no contact with other people that they may have harmed or their family?
yes.
And so ultimately, have you seen in your experience that people can be, that people that are successful on probation and successfully completed?
Yes, I have seen individuals that complete their term of probation.
And have you also seen people who have not successfully completed their probation?
Yes.
Now, if a person violates these rules and its conditions of probation, what does the probation department do if they find out that they've been violating those rules?
So we, to a certain extent, the probation officers can have some type of discretion in order to sanction individuals, address violations that may have occurred, but ultimately it is our responsibility to ensure that those violations are reported to the court. Of course, timely, accurately, and so that can range from any type of violation. So any of the conditions that have been ordered, it would be the responsibility of the probation officer to notify the court.
And as far as once the court is notified, have you seen that people on probation that have violated their probation have a motion to revoke that probation?
Yes, there are individuals that have a motion to revoke filed.
And motions to revoke probation can, if the court determines that the person violated, if the court wants to, the court can take that person off probation and sentence that person to prison.
Yes,
And I guess whatever the underlying prison sentence was that they're on probation for, they can go for up to that amount of time.
yes,
Now, just to be clear for the jury that I have asked you, you're normally in this 399th District Court now.
yes, I've been covering in that court for a couple of months.
Right. And as a supervisor, sometimes you're called to go to different courts and cover in court.
Yes,
But you don't know anything about the facts of this case, and I didn't talk to you about the facts of this case at all. I'm just asking you the general conditions of probation that you're aware of.
that is correct.
All right, Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
State,
I'm just curious, Ms. Zapata, when were you asked to testify for defense?
I was approached this morning
And have you ever testified for defense counsel before?
for this defense counsel.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
How many times?
I believe one time before.
Oh, what type of case was that?
It was an intoxication manslaughter, if I am correct.
And talking about probation and manslaughter, how often, based off of your training and experience, have you seen someone get probation for manslaughter?
I don't see it all that often, but there are individuals that are placed on supervision for those offenses.
And you mentioned something about an underlying term. Can you explain to the jury, what does underlying term mean?
So an individual that's granted regular probation, they have their underlying term, which is the maximum amount of time that that individual would serve in prison. And then they have their probation term. So you could have an individual that has a maximum of 10 years in prison that they would serve, depending on the level of offense. And then they could be on probation for up to 10 years.
I was. So, for example, let's say if someone gets an underlying term of 5 years and that's probated out for 5 years, what does that mean?
So that means that a person would be on probation for 5 years. And then the underlying term is 5 years. So if they were to get revoked on their probation, they could only be sentenced up to those 5 years.
And based off your training and experience, how often are people revoked whenever a motion to revoke is filed?
I wouldn't be able to tell how often. I can say that I do see people that are continued on probation and not necessarily revoked the first time that they're have a motion to revoke their probation.
And talking about revocation, has anyone, based off your training and experience, or is it common for someone to be revoked because they don't pay back restitution?
I wouldn't say it's very common.
And you talked about, you spoke about a few alcohol and drug treatment programs. Well, wouldn't someone who's gonna go into one of those programs, wouldn't they need to be honest about the drug and alcohol use?
So anytime that the probation office does offer substance abuse treatment, so we do have a unit within our department that does those assessments. It is determining the level of treatment is based off of a self-report. So the individual would have to self-report their substance use, current or history, and then the assessor would make the appropriate determination on what level of treatment would be appropriate for that individual.
So if someone weren't honest about that, then there may not be a proper determination as to where they need to go.
Correct. If they do not self-report substance use issues, then the assessor may not be able to make a determination on an appropriate level of treatment.
And the defense counsel brought.
Right, defense.
Yes, Your Honor, we will be recalling Ms. Irma Rodriguez. First name, Irma?
All right, you're still under oath. Defense.
Yes, Judge. Ms. Rodriguez, known Alex your whole life. Has he ever been convicted of a felony offense?
No.
We pass the witness, Judge.
State.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
One, you've been in here listening to probation and everything, but the officer testified to that. But you stated that your son doesn't really drink much alcohol.
That's correct.
So does he do any other substances?
No,
So he doesn't have an alcohol problem,
no,
doesn't have a substance abuse problem,
no.
so. Thank you. No further questions.
May this witness be excused, Judge?
State, any objection to this witness being excused?
No objection.
All right, you may step down.
Defense rest.
All right, state, do you close?
Stay close.
Defense closes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read to you what's entitled the charge of the court. You don't have to memorize this. You will be given the original when you begin your deliberation. Charge of the court on punishment. Members of the jury, by your verdict returned in this case, you have found the defendant Alexander Castro guilty of the lesser included offense of criminally negligent homicide. Also, by your verdict, you have found that the defendant used or exhibited a deadly weapon, namely a motor vehicle, during the commission of the offense of criminally negligent homicide. It is necessary that the jury assess the punishment for this offense. You are instructed that the punishment for criminally negligent homicide, where it is shown on the trial of the offense that a deadly weapon was used or exhibited during the commission of the offense, and that the defendant used or exhibited the deadly weapon, is confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division for any term of not more than 10 years or less than 2 years. Therefore, you will assess the punishment of the defendant at any term of not more than 10 years or less than 2 years. In addition to imprisonment, the defendant in this case may be punished by a fine not to exceed $10,000. And if you choose to assess a fine in addition to imprisonment, you will assess such fine and so state in your verdict. If you assess a fine, it is not paid to the victim, if any, but is paid into the registry of the court. The defendant in this case has applied on written sworn motion for community supervision, stating among other things that he has never been convicted of a felony in this or any other state. Our statutes provide that where a defendant is found guilty of the offense of criminally negligent homicide with a deadly weapon, and they further find that the defendant has never been convicted of a felony in this or any other state, the jury may, within its discretion, recommend community supervision during the good behavior of the defendant. If the jury does recommend community supervision, it will be granted by the court. If there is any evidence before you that the defendant may have previously committed an offense or act of misconduct other than that for which you have convicted him, you are instructed that this evidence, if any, was admitted to assist you, if it does, in determining what sentence is appropriate in the case at hand. You may consider that evidence in assessing punishment only if you first believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed such other offense or act of misconduct, if any. In the event you have a reasonable doubt as to whether any other such offense or act of misconduct was committed, or as to whether the defendant was involved in such other offense or act of misconduct, then you will wholly disregard the evidence, if any, which may relate to any such matter. You are instructed that under our law, no evidence obtained by an officer or other person in violation of any provisions of the Constitution or laws of the state of Texas or the Constitution or laws of the United States of America shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on the trial of any criminal case. Therefore, if you believe or have a reasonable doubt that the evidence was obtained in violation of any provisions of the Constitution or the laws of the state of Texas or of the Constitution or laws of the United States of America, in such event, the jury shall disregard any such evidence so obtained. You're instructed that unless you believe from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that any statement introduced into evidence was freely and voluntarily made by the defendant without compulsion or persuasion, or if you have a reasonable doubt thereof, you shall not consider such statement for any purpose, nor any evidence obtained as a result thereof. You are instructed that the defendant may testify in his own behalf if he chooses to do so. But if he elects not to do so, that fact cannot be taken by you as any circumstance against him, nor prejudice him in any way. The defendant has elected not to testify in this punishment phase of trial, and you are instructed that you cannot and must not refer or allude to that fact throughout your deliberations or take it into consideration for any purpose whatsoever. In your deliberations, you may consider evidence introduced during the guilt phase of the trial, as well as any evidence introduced at the punishment phase of the trial. Under the instructions herein given, it will not be proper for you in determining the penalty to be assessed to fix the same by lot, chance, any system of averages, or any other method than by a full, fair, and free exercise of the opinion of the individual jurors under the evidence admitted before you. You are instructed that you are not to let bias, prejudice, or sympathy play any part in reaching a punishment verdict in this case. The length of time for which a defendant is imprisoned may be reduced by the award of parole. Under the law applicable in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to a term of imprisonment, The defendant will not become eligible for parole until the actual time served equals 1/2 of the sentence imposed. If the defendant is sentenced to a term of less than 4 years, the defendant must serve at least 2 years before the defendant is eligible for parole. Eligibility for parole does not guarantee that parole will be granted. It cannot accurately be predicted how the parole law might be applied to this defendant if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, because the application of that law will depend on decision made by parole authorities. You may consider the existence of the parole law. You are not to consider the manner in which the parole law may be applied to this particular defendant. A suitable form is attached hereto for your verdict if you should care to use the same. However, such form is not intended to influence you in any way in arriving at your verdict. In any event, your verdict must be unanimous, in writing, and signed by your presiding juror. Respectfully submitted, Judge Stephanie Boyd, 187th District Court, Bexar County, Texas, and suitable forms are attached. All right, each side you have 15 minutes. State, are you prepared?
State reserves full time for me, please.
All right, defense?
Yes, Your Honor, may I have a moment to set up the technology?
Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
And would you like a time announcement?
Yes, Judge, may I have a 5-minute warning?
Yes.
We asked you to follow the law. And we know that you did. We understand your verdict and we respect your verdict. Thank you for looking at the evidence closely and for taking that time. Now where we're at today, and right now, is the punishment phase, deciding where Alex will be for the next part of his life. That's what we're here for right now. Talking a little bit about the range. Yeah, can you? Yeah.
And defense, I've paused your time.
Thank you, Judge. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Thanks. The range is 2 to 10 years in prison or probation. And we're asking you today to give Alex probation. And I'm going to walk you through why he should be given probation and what that means in context. Right now, what we just heard is punishment. And the state, this table over here, is allowed to bring you any bad thing that Alex has ever done in his life. They're allowed to bring to you any person that he has hurt. What we heard right now is that they brought you the worst thing that he has ever done in his life. They brought you one night to depict what you should do for the rest of his life. Now, we brought his mom today. We didn't bring her to excuse his behavior or to defend him. I know she got a little defensive up there. Of course she is, that's her son, and she is scared to lose him. So please do not hold that against Alex. We just brought her to testify a little bit about his life and who he is as a person and his own family. What we know for a fact, and I don't think that can be contested by either side, is that Alex never meant to hurt Miss Saber, and he never meant to kill her. He never meant to hurt anybody. This is not an intentional act that happened. We know that. Now, when you go back there and deliberate, this will be in the charge, and it says that it will not be proper for you in determining the penalty to be assessed to fix the same by lot, chance, any system of averages, or any other method than by a full, fair, and free exercise of the opinion of individual jurors. meaning cannot be determined. Okay, you want this number, I want this number, let's just do this number. The evidence has to be analyzed by each and every one of them. You will also read in the charge that you can, or you should know that there is parole law. There is a certain time where someone is eligible for parole. But it's also in the charge that you should not use that in determining what kind of sentence you want to impose. And the reason for that is we do not know what the parole board would do. We do not know if they will deem someone is able to leave at half time, 75% time, or even the full time. You should know that whatever sentence you give, if you go that route, will be the full time, most likely. Now, context, this is where this comes in. A 10-year term in prison means that Alex has extensive criminal history. He's been a felon. He obviously is not. We brought that before you today. That's what a 10-year sentence looks like. That's somebody who's been in trouble with the law, who is a felon, and has had second chances. That's not Alex. It's also maybe somebody with a history of reckless driving. Could be, they could have brought to you his driving record that says, okay, he's had 5 tickets for speeding, he's had this many accidents, he's done this, that, or this with other people. He's hurt people before, people have had to go to the hospital. And that is not the case today. Alex does not have a history of reckless driving that has not been brought before you. That is also what a 10-year case would look like. If you've heard evidence that this has been an ongoing issue in his life, that this is not the first time that this has happened. A 5-year case, somebody who's had prior second chances, somebody who's been given an opportunity before, maybe by a jury, somebody who's messed up and has been given that chance again to redo their life. And that is not the case here. There's been no evidence about that. Another 5-year case in prison could maybe mean there's no Shayna Lassel and there's no issues with SAPD. And again, I want to remind you, we're not using that to excuse him. We're using it to provide context. If there was no Shayna Lassel, if there was no SAPD not putting warning signs, then maybe 5 years in prison would be appropriate. Because then at that point, he would have just crashed into somebody on the highway when there was not standstill traffic. Those are not the facts in this case. They are not. What we do know is that Shayna Lassel, who created this chaos, who made Miss Siebert stay there in that line, we know that she was given a citation that night and dropped off with her husband. And we know that the SAPD officers were given a suspension by the department. And now we have Alex. He's the only one over here. We heard that Alex is a dad. He has his 2 kids, Aubrey and Caleb. And we know that Miss Siebert's death, nothing can bring her back, nothing. And the pain that that family feels, we cannot even imagine. And that is not to go, what we're not trying to say is ignore that pain because he has 2 children. What we're trying to say is sending him to prison will compound that pain. And it will mean 2 other young adults, a 16-year-old girl and a 19-year-old male, will be left without their father. And what does that mean? What kind of trauma at that point will they have? We know that he's important to them. We know that he's somebody who cares for them and supports them. And that's another family that's going to be broken. So that brings us to why we are asking for probation today for criminally negligent homicide. And that is because Alex has the ability to be on probation. We did not hear of any violations since he's been awaiting on bond. We did not hear anything. They could have brought you. He failed to report to his officer. He failed a urinary analysis test. Anything like that. Any single thing that he's been watched for. Every step that he's taken has been examined for the last 2 years. And we did not hear about any mistakes that he has made. And that means that Alex has the ability to be on probation. Not one violation. Probation means, 1, after today's verdict, he's going to be a felon. He's going to be a felon for the rest of his life. That is the truth. And it also means that he'll have to report to somebody. He will have to follow all the rules. if you grant him probation, that this judge will give him all of the rules. That means taking whatever classes is deemed necessary after he's evaluated, as Officer Zapata told us, by evaluated by someone who's able to make that sort of assessment, who understands what people need and what people don't need. A professional. He's not going to be able to do anything or mess up, make any sort of mistakes, because he will have prison over him. He will be able to make amends. He'll be able to live his life as a good person. And he'll be able to pay restitution back. He'll be a felon, and that's something he'll have to live for the rest of his life. What happened, the Sabert's death, is something that Alex has lived for every single day, as he should, since it happened. Every single. The whole of Alex's life, again, not to excuse him, it's just to provide you some information about who he is, where he came from. Aubrey and Caleb. That is one of our biggest reasons that we are asking you to give him probation, to allow him to continue being a father for those two children that did not have anything to do with this. Prison means sending him away, means he will be locked up for one mistake that he made in his life, which is the death of someone. Means he will not have any ability to provide for his family. And it means that a 38-year-old man, in addition to a family that's already lost, we're also going to lose another. No second chance provided to him. So that's why when you go back and you are looking at this verdict form, we ask that you assess punishment between 2 to 10 years. And that you fill out one of these 3 slots where the X mark is. And they say that we have not assessed fine, and we recommend the term of confinement, where we have assessed or suspended the defendant and placed him on community supervision, meaning that you have allowed him another chance and you're putting him on probation, rather that be 8 years or 10 years on probation. The second one means that he will also have a fine. And the third one also means that he will have a fine. But all those 3 choices, 1, 2, and 3, means that
5
His-
minutes.
yes, Judge, thank you. His application for community supervision has been accepted. Punishment and context. We're asking you to give him another chance. We're asking you to think about what is just in this case. We're not here for revenge. That's not what this is about. Nothing can undo what has been done. I know Alex wakes up every day and wishes he could do something to undo it, but it can't. And that's why we're asking you to grant him community supervision. Allow him to be a felon for the rest of his life. Allow him to make amends however that is. Allow him to be with his 2 children, Aubrey and Caleb, and not to throw him in, not to throw him away.
State,
Thanks, Judge.
would you like a time announcement?
Yeah, 3 minutes, Judge.
Mr. Chairman, can you get the mic? I think the computer is loud.
All right.
Oh, it's that one.
This one right here.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the last one to speak to you today. And we're gonna go back and deliberate and determine the outcome of this trial that we've been here for. I'm gonna tell you this, that just touching on some of the things that defense counsel brought up, about no second chance, no throwaway. He got a big second chance. This individual over here has more second chances than a cat has lives. I mean, you had the police department that messed up a little bit. You have us prosecutors that might have messed up a little bit, but the fact is, he did what he did. And still, I was surprised, still blaming others, still blaming this Acel lady. I mean, if that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, go back there right now. I'll stop. You go back there and give him probation. Because they're still blaming somebody that had an accident down the road. That means every single one of y'all could have slammed into the back of anybody and blamed people up ahead. Take no responsibility for your own actions. That's what this individual over here has been doing throughout this whole trial, the whole trial. They all went back there, came back with criminally negligent homicide, 2 to 10 years. He gave them another second chance there. I respect your decision. I understand your decision. But he was facing 2 to 20 before. Now he only has 2 to 10. And they still asking for another second chance, another bite at the apple. That woman right there, that young lady will never have another second chance. This family over here will never embrace her again, ever. But let's give him another second chance to hug his daughter and hug his other daughter and hug his family and love them. But you know what? He's gonna have that chance. You can send him to prison for 10 years and he's gonna get out someday and he's gonna say, I got away with it. Because the cops messed up. Because that lady down the road got in an accident. Prosecutors didn't do a good enough job. That is done today. Done. That's Alexandria Shea West Cypress. When he met that man over there that night, that's what she ended up as. This is where she ended up. Probation. What do you have to do? What do you have to do to get sent to prison? If it's not killing someone, my gosh, where are we at in our society that we want to allow people like him just to say, hey, look, bad mistake. I'm sorry. Give me probation because I got 2 kids, one's 16, one's 20. This is the definition of substantial, well, not definition, but substantial risk, unjustifiable risk. A gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances viewed from the actor's standpoint. Let's talk about that. You've already gone over this during the guilt instance, but he was going 90 miles an hour, and even from his own mouth, when you talk to USAA, it was 65 miles an hour. So that's 25 miles an hour over the speed limit when he slammed into Alexandra's car. 25 miles an hour over the speed limit. And we all know, you saw the speed limits out there was 45. He knew it was under construction. You look at those USA documents, he said it was new construction. He knew all this. But still, he's blaming Alexandra for that Honda slid into me. All the evidence in this case, all of it, says he slammed into the back of that young lady and sliced through their freaking car. And in an instant, 24 years is gone. The rest of her life is gone. Let's give him probation. Go back there and give him probation. No. How? Look at everything else. No breaking. From all the evidence, no breaking at all. Scientific evidence, the math, pictures at the scene, none of that. No evasive action. Highway was under construction. We got 45-mile-an-hour zone. And let's talk about drinking 4 to 5 beers, and it's after 2 a.m. in the morning. What closes at 2 a.m.? You've heard all the evidence. You're smart people. Y'all know. And where did that tracking send him? Where was he? For those hours before he slammed his car into that car and killed that young lady. No, we can't tell you he was inside that bar. But you're smart people. You saw that tracking.
Improper argument.
All right, overruled.
He's around those bars. And more bars. More bars. And at 2:02 a.m., he's leaving. Traveling down the highway like a missile going 90 miles an hour, just waiting. When's that person? That's just an unlucky person, because Miss Fever was unlucky. Very unlucky. The defendant said he saw an 18-wheeler, said he saw the Honda slide into him. At times he said he didn't see it. Things that he says and other people saw, taillights as far as the eye can see. Remember Josh's testimony. As far as the eye can see, taillights. Everyone else saw it. Everyone. Because there's only one person that slammed in the back of her car or anybody else's car that night, and it was him. And he wants probation for it. Even two of the vehicles, an 18-wheeler and the car right behind the 18-wheeler, which he said he was behind the 18-wheeler, I might add, had their hazards on. You saw the picture. There was a clear line of sight for half a mile. Blame the victim again. Blame the officers. Blame the other driver. Everyone else stopped. Everybody else slowed down. Everyone else avoided a crash. Everyone else noticed the traffic. Everybody else knew the risk of driving on a highway, especially going at a speed of over 90 miles an hour and not hitting the brakes. She slowed down. Alexandria did. Everyone else except for this man, this defendant that's asking you for probation for killing a young lady. He was concerned. What was he concerned with? You saw the body cams. Watch him get it if you like. But I'll tell you right now, he was concerned about his golf clubs. Carrying those golf clubs around. Dropping them. Those officers messed up. I agree. They messed up big time. But let's not mess up again. This man deserves 10 years. What was he doing? Literally minutes after the wreck happened at 2:21 a.m. Calling his wife, come pick me up. That was on body cam. You heard Paul Martinez testify that he called his wife. He let him borrow his phone. Minutes after, he's worried about going home, getting his golf club and going home. Not caring about anybody else but himself. At 2:36 a.m., Alexandra is still at the scene. Annie Ness arrived at 2:38. She's over there lying in a pool of blood, breathing her last remaining breaths. And he's calling his wife saying, I need to get a ride home now. He deserves probation. He's concerned about going home the whole time. Takes photos. Photos. He wants more photos of her vehicle, like a trophy. Look what happened. He lied about hitting those brakes. He proved that. I know we're here during punishment, but he lied. He keeps lying. In fact, he blames Alexandra. He says that Honda slid into him, and he says that at 4:22 a.m. He lies. The evidence shows that he slammed in the back of that car. Stop blaming everybody else and take responsibility. I mean, Alexandra is never going to grow up. She's never going to hug her mom again. Never going to go to the grocery store with her dad. Never going to pet her dog, Blue, ever. And he wants probation for that. He took away a life. And he's only had to give up 10 years of his life. That's it. He took away 50 plus years of Alexandra's life. 50 plus years. She was a giving, kind individual that would probably be embarrassed that we're in here arguing over her and saying what type of life she led. You know, when you go back there and think about what to assess this individual, just remember those things. Our community deserves better than this. You deserve better than this. We all deserve better than this. Alexandria definitely deserves better than this, to be blamed constantly for this man's actions that night of going around town all nights of the hour, drinking, disregarding the speed limits, the warning signs. He doesn't deserve that second chance at probation. He deserved to be sentenced to 10 years in prison so that the punishment fits the crime. In fact, it doesn't, because it's only 10 years. A life was taken away by this man. Maybe he wants to say it's a mistake, or if he wants to call it an accident, that's fine. He can call it through whatever, they can call it whatever they want. But in the end, Alexandria is never gonna be back. And she deserves a lot better than this. And I think our community deserves better than this.
3 minutes.
Thank you. He gave him half. He was going from 2 to 20 years for manslaughter. You gave him half already. Give him the 10 years. He deserves it. He earned it. Right there on that stretch of highway where Alexandria took her last picture that she ever took. They deserve it. We all deserve it. When you look back at this, I put 10 years. You're supposed to put 10 years. Put a check mark right here saying probation denied. It's the only proper thing to do. You gave him a break already. Don't give him another one. Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard all the evidence that you're going to hear in this case. So Deputy Laura, of course, is going to separate the two alternates. All please rise for the jurors.